The sun had just dipped below the horizon as Steven Seagal's private jet gleamed under the runway lights. Dressed in his trademark black silk jacket and tinted glasses, Seagal moved with slow, deliberate confidence, the kind that turned every head without a single word. The airport staff straightened as he passed. Everyone knew his reputation, calm, intimidating, and precise. Inside the jet, the crew was in last-minute preparation mode. The head flight attendant, Clara Dawson, checked her reflection in the cabin window, muttering under her breath. She was experienced but had a temper that sometimes clashed with high-profile passengers, and tonight she wasn't in the mood for Hollywood egos. When Seagal stepped aboard, Clara forced a polite smile. "Good evening, Mr. Seagal. Welcome aboard." He nodded lightly, his deep voice calm. "Thank you." She gestured toward his seat, though the stiffness in her tone didn't go unnoticed. The rest of the crew kept their distance, exchanging nervous glances. One of them whispered, "He looks serious tonight." Another replied, "He always does. Just don't mess up." As the doors closed, the engines roared to life and the luxury jet began to taxi. Seagal settled into his seat, glancing briefly out the window. His movements were quiet, almost meditative. Clara walked by to offer a pre-flight drink. "Sparkling water?" she asked, her tone flat. Seagal gave a polite nod. "Still, please." She sighed audibly but fetched the bottle anyway. When she returned, she placed it on the table with a little more force than necessary. A quiet clink echoed through the cabin. Seagal didn't flinch. He simply looked up at her, his eyes calm but sharp, the kind of stare that could cut without a word. "Everything all right, Miss Dawson?" he asked softly, her lips tightened. "Just fine, sir." He nodded once, eyes returning to his tablet. The tension in the air was subtle but unmistakable, like a calm sea, hiding a storm beneath its surface. No one could have guessed what was about to unfold on that flight, an incident that would leave everyone on board in disbelief and cost an entire crew their jobs. The jet leveled smoothly above the clouds, city lights fading into a sea of stars below. Inside the cabin, everything looked peaceful, soft golden lighting, quiet hum of the engines, and Seagal sitting silently, reading something on his tablet. But under that calm surface, tension was quietly brewing. Clara walked briskly down the aisle, her heels clicking against the marble floor. She had served dozens of VIPs before, CEOs, actors, and even politicians. But something about Seagal's quiet composure rubbed her the wrong way. He didn't demand attention. He didn't try to charm anyone. He simply existed with authority, and for someone like Clara, who thrived on control, that was unsettling. She approached him again with a tray. "Would you like your dinner now, sir?" Her tone was polite, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. Seagal looked up briefly. "Not yet. Maybe later," he replied evenly. Clara blinked, clearly annoyed. "It's going to get cold if we wait too long," she said, voice tightening. He looked at her again, this time longer, calm, measured. "Then please keep it warm." That short sentence, delivered with quiet authority, seemed to irritate her more than a yell ever could. She turned sharply and walked away, muttering something under her breath. The other attendants noticed. One of them, Lena, whispered, "What's her problem tonight?" Another shrugged. "You know Clara. She hates when passengers act too calm. She thinks it's arrogance." Seagal continued reading, paying no attention to the whispers or sideways glances. His breathing remained steady, his face unreadable. But his intuition, the same sharp instinct honed from years of martial arts discipline, told him the energy on this flight wasn't right. About 30 minutes into the flight, the jet hit light turbulence. Clara steadied herself against the wall, sighing dramatically. "Ugh, this plane handles like a bus," she said, not realizing Seagal could hear her. He raised an eyebrow slightly but stayed quiet. Moments later, he pressed the call button. Clara turned, exhaling through her nose before walking back. "Yes?" she asked stiffly. "Could I have some tea, please?" "Green if possible," he said, voice steady as ever. She paused, clearly irritated. "We don't have green tea. Only black." "That's fine," he replied, nodding once. But when she returned with the cup, she set it down with just a little too much force, enough to spill a few drops across the table. Seagal looked at the spill, then back up at her. "Thank you," he said calmly. Clara crossed her arms. "You're welcome," she said flatly and turned away. The co-pilot peeked through the curtain, catching the moment. He shook his head quietly. Something was off and everyone felt it. In the galley, Clara vented to the younger attendants. I'm sick of these celebrity types. They think they're gods just because they're famous. Look at him. Too proud to even smile. Lena tried to calm her. Clara, don't. He's your passenger. Just get through the flight. But Clara wasn't listening. Her pride was louder than her reason. Back in his seat, Seagal continued reading, but his reflection in the window revealed he was fully aware. Every word, every tone, years of experience had taught him when conflict was coming long before it arrived. And tonight it was on its way. The turbulence passed. Dinner service began. Seagal declined again, politely, this time with a small smile. I'm fine for now, he said. Clara's patience snapped a little more. You should really eat something, she said, sounding more like a teacher than a flight attendant. I'll eat when I'm ready, he replied gently. That was the moment something shifted. The power dynamic, subtle, unspoken, tilted away from her. She didn't like that feeling one bit. Lena tried to intervene. Clara, maybe I can serve him instead. But Clara shot her a glare. I can handle it, she said sharply. From that point on, every small task felt heavier. A napkin not folded right. A bottle placed a little too hard. An accidental eye roll when Seagal wasn't looking, or so she thought. Everyone on board could sense it. A storm was quietly forming in that calm cabin. Then the pilot's voice came over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll experience some mild turbulence again. Please remain seated. Clara, visibly irritated, sighed. Great, more bumps. Seagal looked up slowly, his tone calm but firm this time. You should sit down too, Miss Dawson. Safety first, the words were polite, but to her they sounded like a command. Her eyes narrowed. I've been doing this job for 15 years, Mr. Seagal. The jet sliced silently through the night sky. A floating island of tension thousands of feet above the earth. Inside, the atmosphere had changed. The luxury lighting that once made the cabin glow now seemed to cast long, heavy shadows. Everyone could feel it. That quiet, dangerous stillness before something breaks. Clara stormed out of the galley again, still fuming about Seagal's calmness. Every time he spoke politely, it made her feel smaller, more irritated, like he was mocking her by being so composed. Her pride couldn't handle it. She approached him with the dinner tray one more time, her heels hitting the floor like hammer strikes. Mr. Seagal, she said tightly, your meal. Please eat before it gets cold. He looked up from his tablet, voice soft but steady. I said I'm fine for now, Miss Dawson. Thank you. That thank you, undelivered so calm, so measured, snapped something inside her. Her jaw clenched. Her eyes hardened. She set the tray down too hard, silverware rattling loudly on the table. Are you always this difficult? She blurted out. The cabin went silent. Every attendant froze. The co-pilot peeked out again, sensing something was wrong. Seagal slowly turned his head, his eyes meeting hers with the stillness of a man who'd faced real danger before. Excuse me? He said softly. You heard me, Clara snapped. You act like we're beneath you, like you own the sky. His expression didn't change. His words were low, almost whisper-like. I treat everyone with respect, Miss Dawson. I expect the same. The tone was calm, too calm. The kind of calm that made everyone else's pulse quicken. Lena tried to intervene. Clara, please let it go. But Clara wasn't listening anymore. You think being famous makes you better than everyone? You can't even talk to people like a normal human being. Seagal stood up slowly. The room seemed to shrink as his full height filled the cabin. The other attendants instinctively backed away. He didn't raise his voice, didn't take a step forward, and he simply looked at her. Sit down, he said quietly. Before you regret what you're about to do, something about those words, calm yet commanding, made the air electric. But Clara's pride was too wounded to stop. Oh, I'm done taking orders from movie stars, she spat. Then it happened. In one impulsive, emotional moment, Mac! Clara's hand swung through the air and struck Steven Seagal clean across the face. The sound echoed through the cabin like a gunshot. Lena gasped. The co-pilot froze mid-step. Even the engine's steady hum felt quieter after that sound. Seagal didn't move, didn't blink. He just stood there, eyes locked on hers. The red mark on his cheek began to show, but his expression was pure ice. Clara's breathing was fast and uneven, her hands trembling. For the first time, she realized what she had just done. No one dared move. The air was thick with fear, Not of shouting or chaos, but of what might come next. Lena whispered, "Clara." "What did you just do?" Clara swallowed, her voice shaky but defensive. He disrespected me." Seagal's deep voice finally broke the silence. "You just assaulted a passenger on a private flight," he said calmly. "Do you understand that?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out. He continued, tone low and deliberate. "Respect is not given because of fame or power. It's given because you know how to act like a professional. You've forgotten that." Clara's jaw quivered. Her eyes darted toward the cockpit as if searching for help that wasn't coming. Seagal turned his head toward the captain and said, "Land the plane." The captain hesitated. "Sir, we're still over the—" "Land the plane." The authority in his voice left no room for discussion. The captain confirmed immediately, beginning to reroute. The other attendants stood frozen, unsure whether to comfort Clara or stay silent. She tried to defend herself again, voice trembling. You can't just do that." "I didn't mean—" Seagal finally sat down, resting his hands on his knees, calm as ever. "You meant it," he said. "You just didn't think I'd respond." Clara turned to the others, whispering frantically, "He can't fire me midair, right?" "He can't," but no one answered. No one even looked her in the eyes. Minutes passed in silence. The only sound was the distant rumble of engines and the subtle ding of the cockpit communication light. Seagal didn't say another word. He just stared out the window, non-stoic, composed, utterly unreadable. The rest of the crew exchanged terrified glances. They'd never seen anyone so calm after something so humiliating. That's what made it scarier. Clara sat in the jump seat, hands shaking. Reality was sinking in. She hadn't just lost her temper. She might have lost her entire career. The captain's voice broke through the tension. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are diverting for a short landing due to operational reasons. Please remain seated." Everyone knew the truth, why they weren't landing for operational reasons. They were landing because Steven Seagal had just decided this flight was over. If you were in Seagal's place, slapped in front of everyone, would you react in anger or stay calm like he did? Comment below your answer and tell us what you would have done in that moment. The cabin had gone dead quiet. You could hear the faint hum of the jet engines and the soft clatter of silverware still trembling from the slap that echoed minutes ago. Everyone was seated now except Steven Seagal, who sat like a mountain of calm strength, his hands folded, eyes fixed on the cabin wall as if meditating on what just happened. Clara, the flight attendant who had struck him, sat a few rows away, frozen. Her confidence had drained out completely, replaced by a trembling silence. Her hands shook so hard she had to clasp them together to hide it. The other attendants exchanged nervous looks. Lena whispered to the co-attendant, "He told the captain to land. He's serious." The co-attendant whispered back, "He doesn't need to shout. That's what makes it worse." In the cockpit, the captain spoke into the radio, voice low but clear. "Tower, this is Jet 77 Alpha, requesting immediate diversion to LAX for passenger request. Confirm priority landing." "Roger, Jet 77 Alpha," the tower responded. "You're cleared for descent." The plane began to tilt gently downward. The passengers could feel the change in pressure, though none dared ask why. Back in the cabin, Seagal finally moved. He stood up slowly, adjusted his jacket, and looked toward the gap. When the wheels touched the ground, the jet rolled smoothly onto the runway, engines humming down as the captain's voice came through. "Welcome to Los Angeles. Please remain seated." The plane slowed, turned, and taxied toward a private hangar. 2 black SUVs and an airport operations vehicle were already waiting near the tarmac, summoned quietly by Seagal's assistant the moment the diversion was announced. Clara's pulse quickened. "Oh God," she whispered. The moment the seatbelt light turned off, Seagal stood. His presence filled the aisle. He didn't raise his voice or even look angry, and that was the most terrifying part. He was perfectly calm. He spoke to the captain first. "Thank you for landing early." Then he looked at the crew. "Gather your things." "All of you," Lena blinked. "Sir, all of us?" "Yes," he said flatly. "Every single one of you was part of this crew. You allowed unprofessional behavior to happen in my presence. You'll all be replaced by morning," Clara gasped. "You can't fire us," he looked directly at her. "I just did." His voice carried no malice, only authority, the kind that didn't need to justify itself. He stepped out first, descending the metal stairs into the cool night air. The black SUV's doors opened as security staff approached. Seagal gave them a brief nod and disappeared inside one vehicle without another word. Behind him, the crew stood frozen on the steps, watching the taillights fade into the distance. Clara whispered shakily, "He actually did it." Lena put a hand on her shoulder. "You slapped Steven Seagal on his own plane, Clara. What did you expect?" The engines began to power down, leaving a heavy silence in their wake. The jet, once a symbol of luxury, now felt like a tomb of consequences. And as the night wind swept across the runway, Clara realized something she'd never forget. Sometimes, it's not the loudest man in the room who has the real power. It's the calmest. The night air outside LAX was cold, sharp, and strangely quiet. The black SUVs carrying Steven Seagal rolled through the private hangar gates, headlights cutting through the darkness. Inside, Seagal sat silently, his large hands resting calmly on his knees. No phone calls, no angry orders, just silence. The silence of a man thinking deeply before he acts. The driver finally spoke. "Sir, should I call the charter company? Inform them about the termination?" Seagal didn't look up. "They already know," he said softly. "They'll replace the crew by sunrise." He leaned back in his seat, exhaling slowly. Some people only understand discipline when they lose what they took for granted. Meanwhile, back at the private terminal, the fired attendants were gathered in shock. Clara sat apart from the others, head in her hands. Her earlier anger was gone, or replaced by disbelief and regret. Lena approached her carefully. "Clara, you have to face it. You crossed the line." Clara shook her head. "I didn't mean to hit him. I just snapped," Lena sighed. "You didn't just hit anyone. You hit Steven Seagal, on his own jet." The weight of that truth finally settled in. Clara's eyes filled with tears. "He didn't even yell," she whispered. "That's what made it worse. He just looked at me like I wasn't even worth being angry at." Across town, Seagal's assistant Tony was already on the phone with the airline's management team. "Yes," he said curtly. "Mr. Seagal wants the entire crew replaced immediately." "Yes, all of them. He said they failed to maintain professionalism, and he's not wrong." "Understood," the voice on the other end replied. "We'll issue the termination notices within the hour." Tony hung up and turned toward Seagal, who was now sipping green tea calmly. "It's done, sir." Seagal nodded once. "Good. Make sure they're paid for their hours. I don't want revenge. I want respect." That line, calm, deliberate, captured who Seagal really was. He wasn't a man who acted out of rage. He acted out of principle. By morning, the incident had already started to leak. One of the ground staff had posted on social media, "Witnessed something crazy last night. A flight attendant slapped Steven Seagal mid-flight. He stayed calm, landed the jet, and fired the whole crew himself." Within hours, the post went viral. Comments flooded in. "No way. He didn't hit back? That's real power. Silence and control." Clara's career is over. Clara woke up to hundreds of messages and news outlets already reaching out for comment. She turned off her phone, ashamed to even read them. By noon, a journalist cornered Seagal's assistant at his gym. "Mr. Seagal, any comment on the alleged incident with the flight crew?" Tony tried to wave them off, but Seagal raised a hand. "It's okay," he said, stepping forward. His voice was calm and low, but everyone nearby went silent as he spoke. "I don't talk about people to destroy them," he began. "But I do believe in teaching lessons through example. A person's true character isn't shown when things go smoothly. It's revealed when they're under pressure." She lost her temper. "I didn't. That's the difference." Reporters scribbled frantically. Cameras flashed. Seagal continued, "I didn't fire them because of anger. I did it because leadership means setting a standard. If I let that kind of behavior slide, then I'm no better than the chaos I try to avoid." One journalist asked, "Do you forgive her?" He paused, then gave a faint smile. "Forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about moving on without carrying hate. I don't hate her. I hope she learned something from this." That quote hit headlines within minutes. Steven Seagal responds with grace after being slapped by flight attendant. "I don't want revenge. I want respect." It became one of the most shared posts of the week. Meanwhile, Clara sat alone in her small apartment watching the story unfold on TV. Seeing Seagal's calm words, her tears returned, this time not from anger or fear, but guilt. "He could have ruined me publicly," she whispered. But he didn't. Lena called her later that night. Clara, he didn't press charges. He told the company to pay us out and move on. Clara was stunned. What? He said he didn't want anyone to suffer, just to learn. That single word, learn, echoed in her mind. She realized then what true strength looked like. Not in shouting or punishing others, but in staying calm when you've been wronged. Across town, Seagal sat in his dojo that evening, meditating under the warm glow of paper lanterns. A student approached him quietly. "Sensei," the student asked, "I heard about what happened. How did you stay so calm when someone disrespected you?" Seagal opened his eyes slowly. "Because anger is the weapon of the weak," he said. "And discipline is the armor of the wise." The student bowed. "So, what will you do now?" Seagal smiled faintly. "Nothing. The lesson's already been taught." He stood, adjusted his belt, and walked toward the door, moving with that same deliberate peace that made him who he was. Outside, the city lights shimmered like distant stars. The world might rage with gossip and noise, but Steven Seagal remained the same, grounded, disciplined, unshaken. And somewhere far away, a woman who once slapped him sat in silence, realizing that sometimes the calmest response delivers the loudest lesson. By the next morning, the internet had exploded. The story, "Flight Attendant Slaps Steven Seagal Mid-Flight," was trending across every major platform. But what made it viral wasn't the slap. It was what Seagal did after. Clips of Seagal's calm response were circulating, captured by a technician on the ground who had overheard the commotion during the unscheduled landing. The video showed him standing tall, speaking to the crew in that composed, low voice. No yelling, no aggression. "Respect isn't demanded," he had said. "It's earned through control." The line hit like thunder. Within hours, millions were quoting it. Memes, edits, and fan posts flooded the internet. Respect Seagal began trending globally. On YouTube, reaction videos appeared by the minute, influencers breaking down his behavior, psychologists analyzing his composure. One headline read, "Steven Seagal shows the world how real power handles disrespect." Even major news anchors discussed it on air. In an era of viral outrage, Seagal's restraint may be the real story here. Meanwhile, in her small Los Angeles apartment, Clara sat curled on her couch, phone in hand, watching the story spiral. Every notification felt like a punch. Her name was out there, not officially, but enough people had connected the dots. She scrolled through hundreds of comments. She should be banned from flying again. Imagine slapping a Hollywood legend and thinking you'll keep your job. Seagal handled that like a true martial artist, calm and controlled. Her stomach twisted. She shut off the screen, covered her face, and whispered, "What have I done?" Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Lena. "Clara, are you watching this?" Lena asked softly. "Yes," Clara murmured. "I can't even look at myself." "He didn't humiliate you," Lena said. "He could have. But instead he made it a lesson." Clara didn't reply. She just sat in silence, realizing that the world wasn't mocking her. They were admiring him. Later that evening, a press conference was called at a charity Jim Seagal supported. Reporters gathered like bees outside the building, waiting for him to appear. Cameras flashed as he stepped up to the podium. Dressed in a simple black jacket, no sunglasses, no entourage. He looked calm, grounded, human. "I didn't come here to talk about anger," he began, his deep voice steady. "I came to talk about respect." The crowd hushed. "People make mistakes," he continued. "We all lose control sometimes. The problem isn't losing control, and it's what we do after." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "I wasn't angry that I was hit," he said. "I was disappointed that someone lost sight of professionalism and discipline. I don't blame her. I hope she finds peace. But I also hope everyone watching remembers, real strength doesn't come from power or fame. It comes from patience." The room was silent. Reporters didn't dare interrupt. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled faintly. "And for anyone who's ever been disrespected, remember this: you don't need to shout to be heard." Applause broke out. Cameras flashed. Within minutes, that single line went viral again. "You don't need to shout to be heard." Steven Seagal, meanwhile, Clara was watching live from home, tears streaking down her cheeks. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. He wasn't attacking her. He wasn't gloating. He was using the whole experience to teach the world about humility and control. She picked up her phone, opened her social media, and started typing. Her hands trembled. To everyone following this story, I was the flight attendant. I was wrong. Mr. Seagal showed more strength in silence than I did with anger. I've learned my lesson the hardest way possible. I'm truly sorry, she hit post. Within minutes, the internet's tone shifted. The same people who mocked her were now sharing her post with empathy. It takes courage to admit your mistakes. Glad she learned something. Seagal's calm changed her. That's real impact. By nightfall, Seagal's quote had been printed on posters, shared in short reels, and even made its way into motivational videos. Influencers called it the Seagal method, mastering your emotions under pressure. That evening, Tony, his assistant, entered his study. Sir, your statement is trending globally. Even airline staff forums are sharing it. Seagal nodded slowly. Good, he said quietly. Maybe it'll stop the next person from losing their temper. Tony hesitated. Clara posted an apology. She seems genuinely sorry. Seagal turned his gaze toward the window, the city lights reflecting in his calm eyes. Then she's already taken the first step toward discipline. If you've ever lost your temper and regretted it later, type control in the comments and tell us, do you think Steven Seagal did the right thing by firing the whole team, or was that too far? Later that night, Seagal trained alone in his dojo, slow, precise movements in the soft glow of candlelight. His reflection in the mirror was still, but his mind was sharp. Every motion, every breath, was a reminder of one truth. A warrior's greatest battle is the one fought inside. As he bowed to end his practice, his phone buzzed. A new notification. A headline, Clara Dawson publicly apologizes, calls Seagal her unexpected teacher. He smiled faintly, setting the phone down. Good, he murmured. Then the storm did its job. He blew out the candles one by one until the room faded into darkness. 2 days later, the story had officially become global. Major news networks from the US to Asia ran it under every headline imaginable. Steven Seagal responds to disrespect with calm wisdom. From chaos to class, Seagal turns conflict into a life lesson. Flight attendant publicly apologizes after viral slap incident. Clips of his quote, "You don't need to shout to be heard," were now being used in motivational videos, business talks, and even school lectures about emotional control. Seagal hadn't planned for any of it. He just spoke his truth, and the world had listened. In his quiet Los Angeles home, Seagal sat in his garden surrounded by bonsai trees, sipping tea as birds chirped in the distance. His phone buzzed every few seconds. Interviews, brand requests, invitations from talk shows. He ignored most of them. He wasn't chasing attention. The lesson had already been delivered. His assistant Tony approached with a tablet. "Sir, the clip has officially crossed 100 million views across platforms," he said. Seagal looked up slightly. "Views don't matter," he replied calmly. "Understanding does," Tony smiled. "Still, the world's calling you a symbol of composure." Seagal chuckled quietly. Composure shouldn't be rare enough to be newsworthy. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Clara was taking her own quiet steps toward redemption. After days of reflection and messages from strangers both harsh and kind, she decided to do something she'd been avoiding, face the man she wronged. With trembling hands, she reached out through Seagal's foundation email, writing a short, honest message. "Mr. Seagal, I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted to thank you for teaching me, even through silence. I've started therapy for anger management, and I hope to become someone you wouldn't be disappointed in." She hesitated before hitting send, but finally took a deep breath and pressed it. Hours later, a reply came back, not from his assistant, but from Seagal himself. "Growth begins when pride ends. I'm glad you chose the harder path, the path of reflection. We all fall. What matters is how we rise." Clara covered her mouth, tears welling up. For the first time since that night, she felt peace. The story continued to ripple worldwide. Talk shows debated it, psychologists analyzed it, and flight safety experts discussed professional behavior. But underneath all the noise, one message stood clear. Respect and restraint are more powerful than rage. In the Philippines, where Seagal had spent years training and mentoring local fighters, Schools started using his quote during morning assemblies. In Japan, where self-control was a cultural virtue, the story was used in business ethics classes. Even police academies in the U.S. referenced his response as an example of emotional intelligence in authority figures. What began as a moment of disrespect had turned into a global movement about dignity and calm. One evening, during a live interview, a journalist asked Seagal a final question. "Mr. Seagal, if you could go back to that flight and change anything, would you?" He thought for a moment, then smiled faintly. "No," he said, "because sometimes the universe gives you chaos, not to punish you, but to test your peace." The audience went silent. Cameras zoomed in. His calm eyes carried more truth than 1,000 words. He continued, "Anger is loud, but wisdom whispers. And the world only hears the whisper when the noise dies down." The audience erupted in applause. That night, back home, Seagal lit a single candle in his dojo. The faint flame danced against the walls as he stood in silence, hands folded. His reflection in the mirror was still, unbothered, complete. He whispered to himself, "Respect isn't something you demand. It's something you become." Outside, the wind carried the sound of distant city life, chaotic, busy, loud. But inside that quiet room, there was only peace. And somewhere far away, a woman who once lost her temper now taught others the very lesson she learned from him. Stay calm. Respect people, because the way you handle your worst moment defines who you truly are. If you believe no one should ever be judged or disrespected, type "respect" in the comments. And subscribe for more real-life stories that remind us, calm isn't weakness, it's power.